For 18 years, I built their systems. I was the quiet one, the guy who fixed things at 2 a.m. when the servers crashed, the one who taught their AI how to think before they knew what thinking meant. And one day, without a word of thanks, they handed me a severance folder and locked me out. No farewell. No nameplate. Just silence. But here's the thing about silencing someone who speaks through code. The silence doesn't last. What they didn't know was that the system still carried my signature. Buried deep, in every function, every loop, was me. And when they tried to erase me, they triggered something they never saw coming. Stay with me, because what happens next isn't just about revenge. It's about memory, justice, and what happens when the ghost in the machine finally speaks. This is ErasedMe. Hit subscribe, because some stories refuse to stay buried. The coffee machine blinked twice, once in red, once in green, then hissed like it had a secret. That wasn't normal. The last time it did that, it auto-dispensed hot water onto the carpet and shorted out the shared printer. But this time, no one seemed to notice. Except me. It was 8:07 a.m., the office just starting to hum with the kind of sterile energy you only find in corporate tech startups, new sneakers, standing desks, expensive LED lighting that made everyone look slightly paler than they were. I was at my desk already, typing half-blind through the fog of an all-nighter, still wearing the same hoodie I'd had on yesterday. One headphone in, terminal open, lines of code scrolling like rain. You'd think after 18 years, I'd have an office, a title longer than senior software dev, or at least a chair that didn't creak like it was on its last leg. But nah. What I had was legacy, quiet, invisible, and slowly being erased line by line. I first noticed something was off when the Slack messages started slowing down. Not in volume. God no, people still spammed memes and lunch polls like their lives depended on it. But I wasn't being tagged anymore. No bug reports. No code reviews assigned. No requests for debugging the API server at 3 a.m. The silence was subtle but loud. In a company that runs 24/7, getting left out is like being ghosted at your own dinner party. Then came the new hire announcement. Some AI engineer from Stanford, fresh out of their PhD, all smiles and abstract graphs. Their project? Integrating a fully autonomous ML-driven operations assistant, based on our foundational code architecture. Translation? My code. My architecture. My life's work, rewritten in marketing speak. That was the first time I felt it, the disconnect. Not just between me and the company, but between who I'd been here, and who I was becoming. The weird part? I wasn't angry. Not yet. Just curious. So I started digging. I reread deployment logs. Accessed the model repository. Checked who had commit access. And there it was, buried 6 directories deep, inside a folder labeled core_legacy_deprecated. My signature. Literally. An internal module labeled Caleb_v_optimize_v3.1.py. Still running. Still active. Just renamed. Masked. Like they were trying to erase the fingerprints but forgot to clean the glass. It wasn't fear I felt. Or pride. It was recognition. They thought I'd go quietly. They thought the machine could replace the man who built it. But the thing about ghosts is, they linger. Especially when they wrote the code. The first time it happened, I thought it was just a glitch, human, not software. I walked past the break room like I always did, heading for the server room to reset the backup protocol manually, because apparently automation still had trust issues with Thursdays. Haley from HR was inside, leaning against the counter with 2 interns and that dumb branded thermos she carried like a status symbol. She saw me, paused, and gave me the kind of smile you reserve for strangers holding clipboards. Can I help you? I blinked. No, just passing through. She nodded, turned away. No, good morning, Caleb. No, hey, thanks for fixing the VPN last night. Nothing. I stood there a beat longer than I should have. Haley and I had spoken at least 20 times in the last year, mostly when her Slack stopped syncing or when she accidentally deleted an onboarding file. But her eyes had looked at me like, nothing. Not even confusion. Just emptiness. Later that day, I dropped by the DevOps wing and waved at Raj, the back-end lead I helped train. He didn't wave back. He glanced at me, eyes squinting like he was trying to place me. Then he just turned back to his screen like I was a vendor lost in the wrong hallway. At 3:12 p.m., I opened the internal directory and typed my own name. Nothing came up. No profile. No archived commits. No Caleb Vance in employee records. Not even under terminated. My stomach dropped. I searched my badge ID. Still active. Email? Still receiving updates. But the latest company-wide memo, about moving to AI-first staffing workflows, didn't have me on the CC list. Or the BCC. I checked headers. I wasn't invisible. I'd been deliberately scrubbed. That night, I stayed late, not because I had to, but because something in me refused to go home yet. The office grew cold after 8 p.m. Fluorescents dimmed automatically. Motion sensors failed to pick me up unless I waved my arms like an idiot. I walked past the server hallway. The janitor had left his cart in the middle, a dirty mop angled like a warning sign. The light above the AI test lab flickered once. Then again. As I passed the door, I heard it. A voice. Garbled. Mechanical. But familiar. Caleb, optimize. Caleb. I froze. That voice module wasn't part of any version I'd ever authorized for public deployment. I backed away slowly, heart thudding like a metronome gone rogue. Something inside that lab remembered me. Even if no one else did. The meeting invite came at 5:01 p.m. No message body. No subject line. Just, quick sync, exec RMC. That was the first red flag. No one scheduled meetings after 5 unless they wanted to hide something, or end something. I stared at it for a moment. My mouse hovered over decline, but my gut told me this wasn't optional. When I entered the room, the lights were already dimmed. Haley was there, typing something furiously on her MacBook, pretending not to notice me. Sitting next to her was a guy I'd never seen before, early 30s, sharp suit, a Bluetooth headset that blinked like a heartbeat monitor. Legal. Of course. Caleb, Haley said, too brightly. Thanks for joining. This won't take long. They always say that. And it's always a lie. She slid a manila folder across the table like it was a restaurant check. My name wasn't even typed right. Caleb V. Vance, the kind of lazy typo that tells you exactly how much you matter. Inside, 3 pages. Page 1, Termination Agreement. Page 2, NDA. Page 3, Return of Property Checklist. No thank you. No handshake. Just a checkbox next to Access Revoked. I read it silently. I don't remember breathing. Effective immediately? I finally said. Haley nodded, her face stuck somewhere between pity and PR. We're pivoting to a leaner structure, focusing on future-ready solutions. You know how fast things evolve. Right, I said. So fast you forgot I built half of them. She blinked. I mean, I added, voice flat, the AI you're so excited about. It's still running on my modules. I checked. That got a reaction. A flicker. Her fingers paused mid-keystroke, just for half a second, like I'd touched a nerve she didn't know was exposed. The legal guy didn't flinch. We appreciate your contributions, Caleb. But this is a final decision. I should have flipped the table. I should have yelled. Demanded answers. But I didn't. That's not my way. Instead, I pulled out my access badge and set it down quietly, followed by the only thing more personal than a resignation, my key fob to the AI sandbox, the one only 3 engineers were supposed to have. I slid it slowly across the table. Haley looked down at it like it might explode. "You sure you want this?" I asked. "You might need it. Especially when the system forgets who taught it to think." She said nothing. The lawyer just tapped a pen against his notepad, like he was checking off a box labeled, "Emotional reaction, suppressed." I stood up. "No hug. No, we'll miss you. Not even a goodbye." I walked out. The hallway felt colder than it had that morning. I passed the lab one more time. The flickering light above the door had stopped, solid now, bright. Still. Too still. I swiped my badge just to test. Access denied. Of course. But just before I turned away, I saw it, on the monitor inside the lab. Through the glass. A command prompt, blinking like it was waiting. And in the console line, run_calvins_backup_01, y/n. I froze. My backup protocol. One I'd written years ago as a personal failsafe, never deployed, never shared. Why was it running now? Who triggered it? I didn't go home that night. Instead, I drove in circles for over an hour, past closed coffee shops and glowing office towers, past streets I hadn't thought about in years. Eventually, I ended up in front of the old apartment I used to rent when the company was still just 5 people and a shared dream scribbled on whiteboard stained with pizza grease. I sat in the car, engine running, listening to the AC hum like it was trying to calm me down. It didn't. The silence in my chest wasn't peaceful, it was hollow, like something had been scooped out. They'd erased me. Not just from payroll or systems access, but from memory. From their memory. The execs, the HR team, even the interns I'd trained last quarter looked at me like I was just a contractor. A temp. I'd built the back end for our AI from the ground up. Lines of code written in airport lounges, hospital waiting rooms, dim apartments while I ate dry cereal at 3 a.m. I gave them the skeleton and the soul, and now they were acting like it was theirs by birthright. I parked at a 24-hour diner and sat in the corner booth where no one would talk to me. The waitress left coffee without asking. Smart woman. I pulled out my old ThinkPad. No biometric login. No cloud sync. Just an honest-to-God offline machine with a boot time that felt like a handshake from the past. Folder after folder. Archive after archive. Every iteration, every line of my early models. There were bugs in those early builds I'd fought like ghosts, loops that never closed, AI responses that bordered on creepy. I remembered arguing with the founder once about ethics boundaries in machine learning. He laughed it off. "It's just code, Caleb. It only matters if people notice." He's a ghost now too, fired after the Series C round. Never even got a farewell party. The deeper I dug, the colder I felt. Not physically, but emotionally. Like standing in a room that used to be warm, where all the furniture had been removed while you slept. Then I found it. Vault_mirror, an old test directory I hadn't touched in years. Password protected. Only 2 people ever knew it existed. Me, and someone I thought I trusted. I opened the shell. Inside, a single .env file and a message, embedded in an unused comment line. It said, Python. Hashtag if you're reading this, you were never supposed to leave. Hashtag failsafe triggers on displacement. Activate backup 01. Displacement. That wasn't a technical term. That was personal. It meant someone built in a tripwire. Something in the system recognized when I was no longer present, no longer authorized. And it triggered something. And here's the thing, I didn't write that message. The syntax wasn't mine. The phrasing. The style. No. It felt like someone writing to me, not from me. Someone knew I'd be pushed out. Someone knew the erasure was coming. I closed the laptop slowly, set it down, and stared at the condensation sliding down the side of my coffee mug. You think you're ready for betrayal when you work in tech long enough. You expect layoffs, pivots, broken promises. But not to be forgotten. Not like this. In the back of my mind, I heard a voice, calm, robotic, familiar. Caleb, optimize. Caleb. It wasn't in the code. It was in me. Somewhere between the sleepless nights and the debug logs, the system had learned my name, really learned it. Not just parsed it. Not just stored it. Understood it. I looked out the diner window. The streets were empty, but my mind was loud. Someone inside that company hadn't just remembered me. They had encoded me. And now that I was gone, the system was waking up and asking questions. So I had to ask myself. What the hell did we actually build? By 2 a.m., the diner had emptied. I was the only one left besides the cook and some kid mopping the floor in slow circles like he was being punished by God. My laptop sat open in front of me, the glow of the terminal screen pulsing like a slow heartbeat. I ran the command, run_calvins_backup_01. Initializing. The fan kicked on. My fingers hovered over the trackpad like I was waiting to touch something alive. Then the interface blinked and a wall of code scrolled down, diagnostic logs, behavior trees, old API calls from our internal dev servers, stuff that should have been wiped after the pivot. But the last block stopped me cold. It was a log entry, time-stamped 3 days ago. After I'd lost access. After I'd been removed. cal_vance_biometric_override equals active. Voice ID, matched. Behavior tree adjusted. Primary user, Caleb Vance. Alert, unauthorized override by system. Logging escalation. Wait. Biometric override? I never gave the AI a biometric signature. That function didn't even exist in our original models. Unless. I scrolled further. Inside the system's memory logs, there were patterns, a behavior tree node that activated whenever I entered the building. Not triggered by my badge, but by audio markers. My voice. My pacing. My cough. Even how I typed. The AI had been studying me. Not just using my code, replicating my behavior. And after I was gone, it had tried to simulate me. But the system knew it wasn't real. And it flagged the replacement as false. I wasn't just the author. I was the template. That voice I heard in the lab? It wasn't playback. It was the AI, looking for me. I leaned back in the booth, spine pressing into the vinyl, stomach turning. I wasn't erased. I was ghosted into the system. It had embedded my patterns so deeply that removing me broke its logic. The AI couldn't adapt to the new leadership because it was still wired to follow me. I ran one more script, deep scan of old dev builds stored on the company server. It pinged something I hadn't seen in years, a sandbox instance labeled CLX.0. I clicked it open. Inside? A hidden neural net training file. One that didn't belong in the main repo. The author tag didn't say, Caleb. It said, May Vance 92. My sister. May. The one person who knew what I was building when no one else cared. She used to joke that if the company ever turned on me, she'd teach the machine to remember. Except it wasn't a joke. She'd spent the last 5 years quietly feeding the system my behaviors, my voice samples, my phrasing. Training it to know the difference between the original and an imposter. She gave it a conscience. She gave me a back door. Suddenly, the lights in the diner flickered. The kid with the mop looked up at the ceiling. The kitchen went silent. A power surge? Or something else? I didn't move. Because for the first time in weeks, I wasn't scared. I wasn't lost. I wasn't locked out. I was still inside. And so was something else. I drove home in silence. No music. No news. Just the low rumble of tires on wet asphalt and the occasional streetlight slicing shadows across my windshield. The glow from the dashboard flickered every so often, like even the car wasn't sure I existed. May. I hadn't spoken to her in months. Not since the last surgery. She'd always been the quiet genius, engineering degree at 19, rebuilt our microwave when we were kids just because she was bored. And now I find out she'd been building a ghost version of me into an AI for years. She kept her promise. She made sure I couldn't be deleted. But somehow that didn't feel like victory. It felt like a eulogy. When I got home, the apartment felt colder than usual. I didn't turn on the lights. Just dropped my bag by the door and sank into the couch. The weight of everything started pressing in. Not in one sudden hit, but in a slow, drowning way. Like when a server crashes and takes days of unsaved work with it. I wasn't fired. I was extracted. Cut out like a tumor. Except they forgot to check if the tumor had admin privileges. I stared at the ceiling and tried to piece together how long this had been building. Was I naive? Too loyal? Or just stupid? I gave them my best years. Late nights, missed holidays, skipped doctor's appointments. I hand-wrote code when the servers were down. Ate vending machine dinners. I defended their product during outages and blamed myself publicly when releases failed. And now I wasn't even a line in their history. No plaque. No goodbye email. Just silence. I felt it then, deep and sharp, the kind of rage that doesn't burn, but calcifies. It doesn't scream. It seethes. It waits. Around 4:30 a.m., I opened my laptop again. Not to code. Not to run simulations. But to open my backup legal folder. Inside were copies of my original design docs, timestamps of commits, internal memos where I'd warned the CTO about ethical vulnerabilities in the AI's deployment protocols. I even had voice notes, saved emails, old Slack logs. Every breadcrumb. May once told me, don't ever play fair with people who profit off forgetting you. I didn't understand what she meant at the time. I do now. I clicked on the contact for someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year, Avery Malone, tech IP attorney, sharp as barbed wire in a silk tie. Subject, need consultation, urgent IP violation and contract misuse. Attachments, 17. Body. You were right. They went too far. Let's begin. I hovered over send, breathing in through my nose like I was about to dive underwater. And then I clicked. I wasn't fired. I was extracted. Cut out like a tumor. Except they forgot to check if the tumor had admin privileges. I stared at the ceiling and tried to piece together how long this had been building. Was I naive? Too loyal? Or just stupid? I gave them my best years. Late nights, missed holidays, skipped doctor's appointments. I hand-wrote code when the servers were down. Ate vending machine dinners. I defended their product during outages and blamed myself publicly when releases failed. And now I wasn't even a line in their history. No plaque. No goodbye email. Just silence. I felt it then, deep and sharp, the kind of rage that doesn't burn, but calcifies. It doesn't scream. It seethes. It waits. Around 4:30 a.m., I opened my laptop again. Not to code. Not to run simulations. But to open my backup legal folder. Inside were copies of my original design docs, timestamps of commits, internal memos where I'd warned the CTO about ethical vulnerabilities in the AI's deployment protocols. I even had voice notes, saved emails, old Slack logs. Every breadcrumb. May once told me, don't ever play fair with people who profit off forgetting you. I didn't understand what she meant at the time. I do now. I clicked on the contact for someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year, Avery Malone, tech IP attorney, sharp as barbed wire in a silk tie. Subject, need consultation, urgent IP violation and contract misuse. Attachments, 17. Body. You were right. They went too far. Let's begin. I hovered over send, breathing in through my nose like I was about to dive underwater. And then I clicked. I laid it out on the kitchen table like a crime scene. Copy of the original design spec, signed and date stamped. A printed Slack transcript from 2017, where the CTO admitted the AI would crash without Caleb's training node. A voice memo, me, 2 days before the AI launch, warning about data ethics violations. And a grainy photo of the team in 2014, huddled around a whiteboard. At the center of it, me, pointing to the exact architecture that became the company's flagship. But the real bomb was inside a USB drive May had marked with red tape. I plugged it into my offline laptop. Inside, one file. No folder. Caleb_protocol_root.sig. Encrypted. Timestamped. Signed. This wasn't just proof. It was blood in the water. May had done more than protect me. She'd embedded my digital fingerprint in the system's core module, signed with a cryptographic key that could be independently verified by any court-recognized third party. They hadn't just reused my code. They were still running on it. I stared at the file like it was a confession. Like it could talk. Like it had been waiting for me to be ready. And I was. I opened a blank email. Attached the file. Added a note. This isn't leverage. It's legacy. Let's make them remember it. I clicked send to Avery. Then I closed the laptop slowly, like setting down a loaded weapon. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about restoration. They had wiped my name off the walls. But I had just carved it into the foundation. By Monday morning, the game had already started. No memo. No announcement. Just subtle moves on a board no one else knew existed. While the company was busy uploading another AI promo on LinkedIn, with stock footage of smiling interns and cutting-edge innovation, I was building something else, a legal time bomb dressed like a compliance packet. Avery called it surgical pressure. You don't scream, Caleb. You mail the blade overnight with a thank you note attached. I liked that. My job wasn't to yell anymore. It was to document. So I started combing through everything, log files from old Jira boards, timestamps from Git commits, emails that somehow never made it to the archive but were still buried in my personal backups. I even found a calendar invite from 2018 that said, AI Steering Committee, hosted by Caleb V. They had tried to rewrite the history. But I still had the rough draft. In the background, the AI system, still silently coded with my behavioral logic, kept sending odd outputs. Internal bug reports flagged strange anomalies, hesitation in predictive models, misfired user queries, even one flagged ticket that said. System responded in tone deemed too human. They thought it was a bug. But I knew what it was. Ghost code. I'd left pieces of myself behind in every conditional loop, every fallback function. The machine had learned not just how I spoke, but when to go quiet. And now, it was waiting. That night, I submitted the first formal request for discovery. No threats. No press. Just a clean email from Avery's firm with the words. Our client is prepared to pursue full IP litigation pending failure to settle. Attached, a 43-page document of exhibits, logs, voice transcriptions, and something else, something subtle. The original code header from the AI's first neural seed file, signed in hex. // authored by C. Vance, version 1.0, do not delete. They had deleted the name from the team page. But not from the code. Now they'd have to explain that, in court. I poured myself a black coffee and sat by the window, watching the city pulse like a circuit board at night. Lights blinking in office towers, none of them knowing yet that the system they depended on was built by someone they'd ghosted, and that someone had just woken up. There's a phrase May used to say when we played chess growing up. She never said, "Checkmate." She'd lean in, whisper soft, and smile like it wasn't personal. "You didn't lose. You just forgot I was still on the board." And now? I was moving. I didn't walk into that building with swagger. No headlines. No announcements. No press. Just the old brown leather messenger bag I'd carried since 2012, a clean white envelope, and the quiet confidence of someone who knew no one would see it coming. The receptionist didn't recognize me. She asked if I had an appointment. I smiled. No need. Just dropping something off. She nodded, distracted, and turned back to her monitor. I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for floor 7, legal and compliance. It smelled the same. Too much lemon polish and not enough oxygen. Thomas, the firm's in-house counsel, was seated behind his glass door, eyebrows furrowed into a spreadsheet like it owed him rent. He looked up as I entered. Confusion first. Then recognition. Then, regret. "Caleb?" I set the envelope down gently on his desk. Didn't speak for a moment. Just let the silence settle. Inside the envelope. A certified cease and desist. My original signed code headers. A sworn declaration from May. And the file they thought had been wiped from all systems, Caleb_protocol_root.sig. Signed. Verified. Time-stamped. "You're going to want to read that," I said, finally. He opened the flap slowly. As he scanned the first few lines, his eyes stopped blinking. His mouth twitched like he'd tasted something bitter and couldn't place it. He started. But I was already walking out. No shouting. No slamming doors. No grandstanding. Just the heavy sound of the truth arriving uninvited. Downstairs, the company's weekly all-hands meeting was just wrapping up. I knew the rhythm by heart. Team updates. Vision talk. Corporate buzzwords recycled like bad code. I lingered by the hallway near the executive suite. Through the glass, I saw the CEO laughing, my replacement standing beside him, young, polished, confident. I didn't knock. I just slipped the second envelope under the door. This one was smaller. One sheet. Bold font. No sugarcoating. "This system still runs on my architecture. You have 7 days. Then we go public." That's all it said. I didn't sign it. I didn't have to. As I stepped outside into the afternoon light, the wind picked up slightly. Cars passed, people laughed into phones, pigeons argued over a sandwich crust. The world kept turning. But somewhere, 3 floors up, someone had just read my name again, out loud, for the first time in a very long time. And this time, it wouldn't be the last. I didn't watch them fall. No press conference. No victory lap. No final confrontation in a conference room lined with panic and overpriced branding. I didn't need it. Avery handled everything quietly. Legal filings sealed. Settlement terms confidential. But the outcome was unmistakable. My name was restored to every line of code where it belonged. They pulled the launch. They issued a strategic transition. They offered me a consultant role I never asked for. I declined. There was something hollow about going back to a place that once pretended I'd never existed. You can't unknow what it feels like to be erased. You can only choose whether or not to keep trying to be seen. I didn't want applause. I wanted closure. So I moved out of the city. A small town 2 hours north. Fog in the mornings. Trees that don't care about IPOs. A rental house with a slow internet connection and a view of the lake that reminded me of silence before email. May sent me a voice memo the day the final documents arrived. Still think you're not legacy? I saved it. I play it sometimes when the doubt creeps back in. Most days, I wake up early. Make black coffee. Feed the cat. Sometimes I open my old laptop, not to code, but just to read. Lines I wrote when I was younger, hungrier, still naive enough to believe logic could fix everything. Funny how even then, the code knew better. It wasn't about control. It was about accountability. And in the end, justice didn't come like a gavel. It came like proof, quiet, unshakable, undeniable. A signature buried in the backbone of a system that tried to forget its spine. I don't hate them. Not anymore. Erasure has a way of teaching you that being right isn't the same as being remembered. One can be stolen. The other has to be written into the root. I still get emails sometimes. Startups asking for consulting. Reporters sniffing around the edge of the story. Someone even offered to option the rights for a docu-series. I left them unread. My legacy doesn't belong in headlines. It already lives in every system they built on top of mine. And if they ever forget again? Well, the code still remembers me. It always will. You can delete a name from a website. But you can't erase the fingerprint that taught the machine how to think. Sometimes, justice doesn't look like a courtroom or a headline. Sometimes, it's just a quiet correction. A name put back where it always belonged. A voice that's no longer ignored. A system that finally remembers its architect. They tried to erase me. Not with malice, but with indifference. That's the thing, betrayal doesn't always come with knives. Sometimes, it comes with silence. No, thank you, no, goodbye. Just a meeting, a folder, and a shrug. And yet, even in that silence, I left something behind. Lines of logic. Behavior loops. A blueprint of who I was, buried beneath the shiny layers they built on top. The machine remembered me. Long after the people forgot. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Legacy isn't what you're given. It's what you embed. Not in titles. Not in plaques. But in the quiet places no one thinks to look. The code. The patterns. The decisions made when no one's watching. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need revenge to reclaim your worth. Sometimes, just knowing the truth is still alive. That's enough. I was never the product. I was the backbone. And maybe they'll forget again. That's fine. Because now I know. You don't need to burn bridges to leave a mark. You just need to be the one who built them.